this year's Me Too Monologues co-theatrical directors.
Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. It's our last show. We had a really great run this weekend. Our actors are immensely talented, and we have some really great pieces for you tonight.
So before we get started, we're going to talk a little bit about what Me Too is, some etiquette, talk about some things in the program. So yeah, Me Too Monologues is an annual showcase where students, alumni members, professors, anyone in the community can submit monologues to us anonymously, and then we get a cohort of student actors to perform them. So none of the pieces that you're going to see tonight were written by the actors themselves. They were anonymously submitted by other members of the community. Also, we're not affiliated with the Me Too movement. Yeah.
I just want to quickly draw attention to your program. Some of our pieces have like trigger warnings or content warnings, so that just will have like more intense themes. So if you need to step out, you can go like in there or back through the exit in which you came. So just like if you need to take a minute. Also, there's the number for CAPS on the online program. So if you need that resource, the QR codes are around the room. So please don't hesitate to do that whenever.
Now we're going to go over Me Too etiquette. At Me Too, we don't clap. Instead, we snap. Snap, snap, snap. We stomp. And if something in the piece really resonates with us, we go,
There we go. There it goes. And then before we start, we just want to say thank you so much to the rest of our producing team. El Chavez is our publicity director. She's in the front row of the audience. Say hi after the show. And then our executive producer, Joey Fleming, is one of our actors, and our associate producer, Tess, Bierly, is also one of our actors, and they're so amazing, and they make the show possible, and we just could not have done it without them. So much love to them, to the writers, the actors, and to all of you for coming out tonight.
thank you.
Dramatic, ungrateful, selfish, defensive, horrible, awful, dumb, stupid, fucking moron. I bet you are all listening to these words thinking that this monologue is about to be funny, but you'd be wrong. These are all names that my dad has called me. In fact, these are all names he's called me within a 5-minute span. Everyone always talks about narcissists within the context of romantic partners, but no one ever talks about being the child of a narcissist. It's a difficult situation to be in because the abuse is essentially invisible to everyone else around you. You don't have bruises or black eyes or scars, but you are crying for help behind your forced smile at every family event, waiting for someone to see your fear and come and save you. I used to think that what's important is what everyone else sees. If a family looks perfect, then it is perfect. Well, my family looks perfect, but it was fucking hell. My whole life, I've been trapped in a cage, pretending to be okay and apologizing when I did nothing wrong. But now that I'm finally free and in college, I can share my story. Everyone throws around the word narcissist casually, as if it just means having a big ego. And while it does include having a big ego or an extremely inflated sense of self, it also includes needing constant admiration and lacking the ability to care unconditionally for others. My dad completely lacks empathy and greatly verbally abuses both me and my mom to protect his own wounded inner child. But don't feel bad for him. Narcissists know exactly what they're doing. They are some of the most manipulative people on this planet, and they are known for their gaslighting tactics. They always win whatever bullshit they start, and they always make you think that it was your fault to begin with. I would be lying if I said that I was completely healed and hold no resentment towards my dad. But the truth is that it takes a long time to become untrauma bonded to a person. Trauma bonded is another word that gets thrown around casually. When I say that I'm trauma bonded to my dad, I do not mean that we bond over our shared trauma, but rather that I am in a seemingly inescapable cycle of narcissistic abuse which he perpetuates. What this looks like is love bombing and masking to gain affection, and then slowly pushing your buttons until you break. And then when you do have a meltdown and tell the narcissist how they disrespected your boundaries and hurt your feelings, they tell you that you are a dramatic, ungrateful, selfish, defensive, horrible, awful, dumb, stupid, fucking moron. Then when you are at your lowest, and I mean your lowest, like, imagine you're at war, and you're on the battlefield, and you've used every weapon in your armory, bleeding to death, begging for your last breath. Instead of just finishing the job and stabbing you one last time to really get you, the narcissist butters you up and makes you feel loved and wanted and cared for. They nurse you back to health to get on your good side. So instead of focusing on the broken leg they gave you, you remember how they helped you to your feet. Because if they don't save you, you might realize who they truly are. And that is the scariest thing for a narcissist. While narcissistic abuse may seem simple when spelled out, it is confusing as hell. It's the reason it took my mom 23 years to file for divorce. And then once you do understand it, it takes a long time to really understand how someone who claims that they love you could treat you that way. While I'm still in my early stages of healing, I've relearned a few things about myself. Despite what my dad has conditioned me to believe about myself, I'm not dramatic. I just know what I deserve. I'm not selfish. I just have my own opinions. I'm not defensive. I just know how to stand up for myself. I am not a horrible, awful person or a dumb, stupid fucking moron. I'm just always learning, and I don't know everything. I am here. I am strong. I am proud of the person I've become.
I keep looking in the mirror and seeing paper. Sometimes I think I can see skin, sometimes I see eyes, but there isn't much of a person in them. There isn't much of a girl between the lips, the ears, the eyebrows, and her crumpled line of sight. Sometimes there is a person somewhere, but a stranger, surely. And if I stare long enough, I can imagine that there is no one here at all. Just an amalgamation of skin. Something small. And then I look back at the bed and there's blood all over my sheets and it's my fault, you know? It's my fault for saying he could come over, hinting at it or not saying no. And it's my fault for drinking too much and meeting up with him and for drinking more once I saw him. As if I had already accepted what was going to happen and I was preparing for the aftermath. And it's my fault for saying, let's go dance, and for leaving my friends. I left my friends for him. God, it's all my fault for following. When he said, let's get some air. When he called a car to my dorm. When he led me up the stairs. I'm so drunk, I was saying. I'm so drunk, sorry, I'm so drunk. And it's my fault for letting him kiss me against the bed, for letting his fingers have their own version of consent, my fault for smiling, for not moving. Did I enjoy it? Was I enjoying it? Was that why I didn't move? Anyway, it's my fault for not saying no. It's my fault for asking if he had a condom. And it's my fault for letting him keep going when it hurt. Letting him keep going when it hurt. Letting him keep going when it hurt. And it's my fault for laying down when he told me to. For closing my eyes when he left the room. For letting him leave me in a bloody bed. It's my fault for letting myself be left. And now I'm apologizing to this paper person in the mirror. I'm sorry. It was my fault what happened to you here. You didn't know that people could take something invaluable from you and leave. You didn't know that people could come so close to you, the closest, and not consider you worthy of respect.
You're just skin and eyes, and you didn't know. I knew. It's my fault. That hickey, that blood here, let me clean you up. That love you didn't get, that panic, that upset, all those shivers in your red-brown bed, let me hold you arms to chest, let me pick you up. You, there, paper in the mirror, let me see your eyes, your skin, your fear, and all. Let me forget about alt. I cannot quiet the words in my mind. The impossible syntax of consent that I'm trying in vain to describe. The events of last night that logic and a faulty memory cannot realize. But I can hold you. I am looking in the mirror and I can hold these arms to chest to elbows to the rest of this paper girl. I can hold you, there, you in the glass. I can do what you didn't dare to ask of him. I can hold you as you lean your sweet head against the bookshelf beside the bed. I can hold you. Look, I am holding you up. I am giving you back your right to be touched. And I suppose I can give forgiveness for what was. I suppose it is not too much. I forgive the both of us, my love.
Dear the United States government, I wanted to send my sincerest regards to you and your staff for creating my most favorite military sector, the ROTC. And an especially huge shout out to the late and only slightly racist President Woodrow Wilson for signing the ROTC into effect in 1960. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the ROTC is the Reserve Officer Training Corps. Today's military defines it as a college program offered at more than 1,700 universities that prepares young adults to become U.S. military officers. But the way that I define the ROTC is hot men in uniform wearing camo that hug everything in just the right places. Garfield may be a slut for Mondays, but I'm a slut for Tuesdays. Why are Tuesdays the best day of the week? Let me tell you. Every Tuesday morning, I wake up to a text from my friends that says, "It's uniform day, ladies!" Not to be dramatic, but the order of best days goes Christmas Day, the day Mussolini died, my birthday, and then uniform day. Another fabulous element about the ROTC is that every branch has their own unique uniform. The Army has the classic combat boots and camo, the Navy has a tan little tailored number, and the Air Force has the most adorable blue triangle hats that make them look like flight attendants from the 1960s. I feel like every day of the week has its meaning. Mondays suck. Wednesday is hump day. Thursday is for going out to the vines. Friday's the last day of the school week. And Saturday and Sunday are the weekend. And now I feel like Tuesday has a meaning of its own. It's uniform day!
Before sophomore year, I had gone to Shooters exactly once. I spent most of my time on the second level wondering what the fuck I was doing in a packed and sweaty college club. But it's not like the alternative was any better. I spent enough nights of freshman year drinking wine alone in my dorm room and listening to Phoebe Bridgers. It seemed like everyone was having fun except for me. As I scrolled through Instagram and saw photos of everyone in their huge friend groups, I couldn't help but feel like I was behind on some great curve. And like all Duke students, could not stand being behind on a curve. So on the first Saturday night of sophomore year, motivated by FOMO, I asked my best friend if she wanted to go to Shooters, ignoring how little fun we'd had the last time. We drank Bacardi and Diet Coke out of Duke mugs, toasting to our unfortunate freshman years and a hopefully good night. The last thing I remember was our rendition of Taylor Swift's I Knew You Were Trouble. Then, the next thing I knew, I was waking up with my back pressed to a cold, tan, cinder block wall. There was a metal toilet next to me. My wrists were sore. The door in front of me was sealed shut, with just a window at my eye level peeking out to Durham County Detention Center. I immediately started screaming until my voice was hoarse while the poor security guard just tried to do his paperwork. Let me out! Let me out! Let me out! I don't really know what I thought was gonna happen. Like, maybe the security guard would change his mind and be like, yeah, maybe we should let this blacked out college student out of jail. If for no other reason than her shutting the fuck up. Thankfully, my best friend arrived to bail me out not long after I had regained consciousness. She signed my papers and the security guard handed me back my belongings, which was just my wallet, complete with everything other than the 2 fake IDs that had been in there the night before. If you take anything away from this story, let it be to never use your fake ID as shooters. On Monday morning in my computer science class, I received an email from the Office of Student Conduct. It was then that the events of Saturday night were explained to me and the gaps in my memory filled. My best friend said I'd seemed fine on the walk over to Shooters and that she'd gone in before me and didn't see my arrest take place. So I had only the police report to go on. Most of it seemed pretty self-explanatory. I'd been arrested for possession of a fake ID, resisting an officer, and destruction of property? On the report, it said I had caused damage to North Carolina law enforcement's 2020 Dodge Durango, and that the damage was in excess of $200. So, it sounded like throw up to me, right? Like, that's what happens when you throw up in an Uber. Not speaking from experience, right? But actually, the Office of Student Conduct had the correct answer for me. It turns out I didn't throw up in the cop car. The excessive damage was actually due to me breaking a window. So yeah, that was a bit worse than I had expected. Don't get me wrong. I understand the amount of privilege it takes to fight with law enforcement and get away unscathed. And I was so lucky. I had the most understanding parents who didn't leave me to fend for myself and instead helped me find a lawyer. We spent the month of September getting my charges dropped. Then, I dealt with the disciplinary dean and a hearing panel of grad students. They determined that I was to be suspended from Duke for 2 semesters. For a while after I got this decision, I spiraled. I didn't tell anyone but my best friend what had happened. I was ashamed at how stupid and reckless I had been. I said I would be taking a gap semester, and I didn't elaborate. When I went home, I was terrified at what would happen next. Once again, I could see myself falling behind the curve. I didn't want to live in my childhood bedroom for 8 months and watch my friends have fun at basketball games and go abroad. So I deleted social media and pretended that Duke didn't exist. And it turned out to be the happiest 8 months of my life. While I was home, I worked as a waitress to make some money to pay my mom back for legal fees. My coworkers became some of my best friends, and they weren't 19 or 20, they were 25, 27,
33.
They told me not to stress so much about college. They reminded me how young I still am. That in the grand scheme of things, it didn't matter if I withdrew from that class or didn't get into that club or made a fool out of myself that one time at Waynestock. I had my whole life to bounce back. I actually loved being home so much, I almost didn't want to come back to Duke in the fall. I considered transferring somewhere else so I could be closer to my new friends. But then I realized that Duke wasn't the problem. I wasn't miserable because of where I was. I was miserable because I didn't allow myself to be anything else. I didn't work on myself. I turned to alcohol to solve all my problems and to numb whatever I was feeling. I was content to be unhappy and lonely forever. I don't want to do that anymore. I won't do that anymore. Last grad weekend, I went back to Shooters. I got in the line, the real line, the underage line, and got inked with 2 fabulous black Sharpie Ds on my hands. My best friend, the same one who picked me up from jail over a year ago, yeah, we're still best friends. Lost her phone, and we spent all night looking for it. Nothing good has ever come out of that club for me, and you will probably never see me step foot in there again. But in a way, I'm glad I went back. It was like a little victory. Take that, Duke. I remembered that there's no reason to force myself into situations that I don't want to be a part of just because I think I need to have some certain version of the college experience. Plus, there are worse things than a little bit of FOMO. Trust me.
Like the other girls in my grade, with their picture-perfect smiles and shiny hair and thin legs and small waists.
At lunch, I sit in a gloomy corner of the cafeteria and pick at yogurts and nibble on nuts and crackers while the smell of my classmates' cafeteria fries and pizza wafts over my head and makes me delirious with hunger.
My stomach won't stop growling. My head is stuffed with foolish pride.
10th grade.
Do you think she's gained weight?
My mom asked. My brother looks at me and nods. My mom has decided that my brother, who's been away at college for the past 4 months, is the best person to tell if I look different. I shrug, squeezing my nails into my palms to stop from feeling. Mornings, before school, I start to grab granola bars instead of cereal or toast, stuffing them into the depths of my backpack where they would remain for weeks until they flattened out and no longer resembled their former shapes.
When my family would gather for meals at my home, my mom would always say,
There's people starving back home, so be grateful for the food you have.
I felt so guilty. There I was starving too, but by my own twisted choice. Once my dad texted me to ask for proof that I'd taken the granola bar to school. I sent him a picture of me smiling with the snack in one hand, but had he thought to click the live picture, he would have seen my smile drop and the bar slip back into my backpack where it would eventually thin itself out. It always did.
Freshman year.
My dorm room feels bigger than it actually is. I mentioned this to my therapist during our 4th session because I try to make myself smaller in every possible way, I tell her. During class, I sit with my arms crossed, sinking as low as I can into my chair. If the professor happens to glance my way, I shoot them a sheepish grin and rise back up.
I'm sure you know, the only thing worse than wallowing in your embarrassment is someone else noticing it. My therapist tells me to do this mindfulness exercise whenever I feel like I'm taking up too much space.
Notice where your hands and feet are, the way your stomach rises when you breathe.
She tells me. It feels like my whole life is this mindfulness exercise, though I don't tell her this. I'm always aware of the tiny things. The way my toes curl when relaxed, the dip of my collarbones, the size of my waist, the thump of my heart, fast and heavy, hungry to eat and bleed
And live.
Sophomore year.
The yoga mat that I brought to do stays in my closet, wrapped tightly and enveloped in dust. My fridge is stocked with bottled salsas and dips, yogurt smoothies, little cups of cake and slices of cheese. The shelves are no longer bare.
I try to make the most of Duke's food scene. Aren't people always saying that college is the perfect time to reinvent yourself? I turn towards spicy miso ramen drenched in spoonfuls of red hot chili oil. I find sauce in fluffy stacks of pancakes and glistening green beans. And my grandmother texts me as I'm about to dig into my cheese pizza.
You looked so beautiful and slim last weekend.
She says,
I delete her message and eye my lunch. The cheese has formed little air bubbles, browned to a golden crisp, topped with sticky balsamic drizzle.
A steaming bite fills my stomach with warmth.
the crust exhales a little steam.
I knew that it wasn't a handful of wheat thins or walnuts. It was something better.
God, why can't people just say what they mean? And since when has a simple compliment have so many sub-meanings and hint, hint, wink, winks? Like this one guy was on the bus, and he has fantastic pink pants, right? So I tell him that, and he looks me up and down, really checking me out. Like I gave him permission? What's up with that? Who says that? Everything has a motive. I hate it. Watch. Hey you, I really like your fit, and your shoes are super cool.
Damn, baby, you fine too. Trying to get out of here or what?
Yeah, for sure. See what I mean? It's atrocious. I throw him a dumb little compliment, and all of a sudden he thinks I'm interested. What was I saying? Right. Like this one time, I'm in the intermission of a touring Broadway so-and-so. Rent, if I remember correctly, over at the Hudson Theater. And I really had to piss. Because, you know, I pre-gamed before the show. Bad idea, by the way. Unless you want to be busting your pants to La Vie Boheme. In which case, be my guest. Anyways, the lines are long shifts, so I headed upstairs. Oh, and keep this a secret, okay? There's a hidden little 2-stall restroom on the 3rd floor, and it's usually empty. But this time around, there's a woman in one of the stalls. Tall, dark hair, peeking out the top of the stall doors, you know. To my business. And I'm washing my hands. She's washing her hands right next to me. She says to me, I really like your necklace. Okay, thanks. Kind of weird, right? I feel like there's this unspoken rule that you're not supposed to chat up in the bathroom. I mean, I'm sure there's someone out there with the love of their life walking into an occupied porta potty. Probably jokes about it at dinner parties. Anyways, kind of got me on edge. My hands were still soapy. I was kind of trapped. Then I swear to God, this woman looked me straight in the face and says to me, you have really nice eyes. What the fuck? Who says that? This grown-ass woman telling me my eyes are pretty. Is she coming on to me? She's in her 30s. It would be really weird if she was. But was she? Does she think I'm a lesbian?
is why I give off those vibes.
Should I be flattered? She's probably married to, I don't want to be part of some messy divorce society who gets to keep the kids and all that. I mean, I don't mind being a homewrecker. It's honestly kind of a flex. But not at this age. But what can I say? Don't talk to me. I'm not interested. No, I'm the one who's being weird. So I say a quick, thanks, drop my hands, and book it straight back into the theater. A couple minutes later, the lights start to dim, so I look up. There she is. Pretty close, but a safe number of rows in front of me. I can sort of see who she's with. A guy. And they look happy together. And I thought to myself, you know what? She's probably just a nice, normal person who happens to talk to people in the bathroom and happens to think my eyes look nice. Maybe people do just say what they mean without a motive. And yet, I look back at the guy she's with and I don't know, I guess I'm a little jealous.
I remember when I told her I liked her. She was out of the country and we'd FaceTimed. We'd been talking for a while and our friends had been trying to set us up for ages. All it took to change my life for the next 8 months was the phrase, I have feelings for you. Now, obviously at the time I did not identify as gay. No. I had pushed those feelings so far down inside myself that they'd been reduced to a faint hum. But as soon as I said those words, that hum, it got louder. The whole reason I've been trying to pursue this girl was that so I could date her and finally prove to myself that I was straight. Because, you see, gay guys, they don't have girlfriends. But the opposite happened. Suddenly my body was filled with the grim reality that the act of having a girlfriend, it came with strings. Oh, I would have to go on dates with her. I'd have to give her all the attention I had. I'd have to meet her friends, meet her family. I'd have to win the approval of her father. I'd have to take her to prom and, worst of all, be sexually active with a woman. The truth is, I couldn't want any of these things. Oh, and not because I didn't care about her. No. I thought then and still think now that she's an amazing, funny, kind person she's definitely a pleasure to be around. No, I just didn't, I couldn't love her like a boyfriend would. Okay, despite these immediate feelings, I couldn't turn to her and say, just kidding, I'm actually gay. No. She was already texting all our friends the big news, and I knew when we broke up, they would all choose her side because they'd known her for longer, and frankly, they loved her more. So I was stuck. For the next 8 months, I proceeded to do everything that had terrified me. I met her friends and family, and I even went on dates with her, and sure enough, through every second of it, I was the most anxious I'd ever been. And, okay, I wasn't anxious because I was afraid she would find out I was gay or anything. No, I actually wish she would find out I was gay without me having to tell her. No. I was anxious because I was supremely uncomfortable. I didn't want her to put her hand there. I didn't want her to put her lips there. But a normal, straight boyfriend would, so I did too. And throughout the whole relationship, it felt like I was wearing the wrong clothes, and all I wanted to do was rip those clothes off my body, but I couldn't. Because if I did, I would lose my friends, and I would lose my dignity. time went on, anxiety stayed, and a new emotion appeared. Guilt. I felt guilty because I didn't have feelings for my girlfriend, and she deserved to have a boyfriend that truly cared about her. I felt like I was lying to her for my own personal gain, even though I really wasn't gaining anything. I decided the best way to solve my problems was to become an inattentive boyfriend. Days would go by and I wouldn't talk to her. I felt bad, but I just couldn't take the anxiety. Finally, after weeks of guilt, she texted me and said she didn't want to see me anymore. And that was it. I was happy that this time in my life was over, but sad that it happened in the first place. I lost all my friends, but at least I wasn't anxious anymore. I look back on this time in my life with shame, too. I'm ashamed that for 8 months, I was continuously lying to a girl that I really did care about. But for some of that time, I try and comfort myself with the fact that she felt comfortable with me. I still think that means something.
Growing up, I wanted to be just like my mom. She had every attribute of a loving mother. She was self-sustained, good, and selfless. She made me feel like I could do anything I wanted. I would wake up at 5 a.m. every morning and wait for her to come back from a 12-hour shift. She would hug me and give me a kiss on the head. I knew I was safe when I was in her arms. Denial. Shortly after my parents' divorce, my mother developed a drug addiction. The night I found out about it is still a blur. But I remember one thing: the disbelief. My mind couldn't comprehend the news I had just learned. There was absolutely no way the hero of my childhood would do this to me, to our family. My family followed in my footsteps of denial. No one acknowledged her addiction. If we ignored the problem, it would go away. Right? Anger. 3 months into this affair, all I could feel was pure indignation. I mocked her self-proclaimed love for me. How dare she tell me that she loves me when she would choose this drug over me, her own daughter? My family would question my motives. They told me she would never get better if I treated her like this. All I could think was, how was I the problem? I was drowning. Could they not see that my entire being was shattered? I wanted my mother to feel the despair that I felt. I wanted her world to burn as mine did. Bargaining. After I let my mother back into my life, I was living a facade. I tried so hard to convince myself that she was clean. I would brag about her to my dad and family, telling them about the job she had gotten, the new car she had bought, and the stable household she supposedly maintained. It was hard to see the red flags, even though every time we spoke, she would manage to tell me just how great she was doing.
It was almost like she was trying to convince not only me that she was stable, but herself. She would send me handwritten letters and circle the number of days she was supposedly clean. I knew they were blatant lies, but I still kept them. Depression. Simple, everyday items triggered dark memories of my mother when she was deep in her addiction. For a while, if I passed through Hiawatha, Kansas, the town that swept my mother into addiction, I couldn't look out the window. Continuing the cycle of abuse became one of my greatest fears. My mindset was that if I was the top of the class and proficient in all areas of skills, I was going to go down my mother's path. I was paralyzed by an all-consuming fear of being mediocre. I thought these things were happening to me because I was a bad person. I truly felt like I deserved to lose my mother. Acceptance. These experiences proved to be my greatest motivators in gaining control of my own life. On February 14th, 2020, I officially filed for emancipation. I chose a future career as a lawyer, specializing in family law, so that I can help others who have been in positions such as mine. I have had almost no relationship with my family since my emancipation was signed. However, every day I am creating a family of my own. A family of friends who uplift me. They encourage me to share my story and show me I am much more capable than I may believe. I am proud to say that I will be a first-generation college student. I'm proud to say that I will be a first-generation graduate student. Most importantly, I am proud to say that I broke the cycle. My first love was warm. He was the fog in the air on an autumn morning. He was the echo of guitar strings being tuned. He was the smell of a bonfire on your clothes in the winter night, lingering.
Loving him was defiance. Sneaking out of my house in the early hours of the morning, telling my parents I would be home in 20 minutes, and then turning that into an hour and 20 minutes. When I hear his name now, it does not bring to mind his face, but a melancholy remembrance of how it felt to be with him, always accompanied by a vivid memory of a breezy, silent summer night in my hometown. We were arguing about directions on the way back to my house, and we pulled into an empty parking lot so that we could decide which way to go. In retrospect, it didn't matter which way we went at all. I think we both decided to start an argument to delay the eventual goodbye that would end the night, even though I was already hours past my curfew. When we pulled into the parking lot, we laughed so hard, but the reason I was laughing was not because he was being particularly funny, but because I just felt so ridiculously normal with him. How joyful it was to simply exist with him. We were two imperfect people in an imperfect situation who were just perfect for each other. And I think that's beautiful. The first love comes swiftly and without warning, because all of a sudden you're enraptured in these feelings of awe and lust and wonder and comfort, and then in the blink of an eye, feelings of hatred and distance and confusion and coldness, and sometimes those feelings go back and forth on a seemingly endless seesaw. What once was a beautiful melody is now a dissonant symphony that is offbeat and out of tune. You are figuring out what it means to be entangled in someone's heart and mind and body. And as I look back, I realized there were aspects of that love that, if I could, I would replicate in every love I will ever have again. But I also realized that I do not want a seesaw type of love. I want a warmly dependable, delicate love. It feels strange thinking of him now. I wonder what he's doing and what he's thinking about. I wonder if he sees me in the strange as he passes by. I wonder if we think about each other at the same time. I like to think we do. I look back on our memories fondly. The kisses by my car, the jokes we could make to each other across a crowded room that only we would notice, but also the fights, the endless nights of crying, wondering how one person could hurt me so much, and how was I supposed to love again? Now, don't get me wrong, I am not in love with him anymore, and I have loved again. My chapter with him has closed. But the amount of gratitude that I feel for him has increased to a near infinite amount. As I continue falling in love throughout my life, I will remember him, the good and the bad. The boy who taught me what true, selfless love was, who taught me that to love is to trust, who brought me joy and great pain, but who taught me lessons that will define the way that I love for the rest of my life. So, to you, my first love, thank you.
You might be thinking,
The only thing worse than wallowing in your embarrassment is someone else noticing it.
Oh, you didn't know that?
I was the most anxious I've ever been.
My stomach wouldn't stop growling.
And I felt like I was taking up too much space.
I would lose my friends, and I would lose my dignity.
Not to be dramatic,
but I felt so guilty.
I'm sorry. It was my fault what happened to you here.
And I was terrified of what would happen next. But I'm always learning, and I don't know everything.
So I will always remember.
There are worse things than a little bit of FOMO.
The hint hint and wink winks.
That this shit is confusing as hell.
My dad and family.
hot men in camo.
My foolish pride.
The echo of guitar strings.
But I am here. I am strong.
I broke the cycle.
And it was a little victory.